Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and brought to you by the generous support of the Tennessee Valley Authority. To learn more about TVA's impact on our community, follow TVA on Instagram at TVA and on Twitter X at TVA News. My Morning Cup, where we have interesting conversations with genuine people. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is Stacy Johnson. Stacy is the president and CEO of La Paz Chattanooga, an organization founded by a group of faith leaders striving to help the Hispanic population. La Paz is celebrating 20 years of serving Chattanooga's Latino community. Stacy, welcome to My Morning Cup. Before we get into how you went from a potential career in television to the nonprofit world, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
Coffee. I need coffee in the mornings.
Caffeinated or decaffeinated?
Caffeinated.
How many?
Probably 2 or 3.
You do that all at home, or you wait till you get to the office and turbocharge it there?
I do it at home, take my thermos with me, with my special stuff in it, and pour it in my cup when I get to work, because I like a real coffee cup.
What's your special stuff?
Just oat milk creamer.
Oh, just cream. That's all you do? You don't do anything a little sweet? Not a pumpkin spice person?
I can be, but not an every day. That's a treat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, welcome to My Morning Cup. Glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
And La Paz is such an effective organization. I want to get into how you got there, but I always like to start at the beginning. You grew up in Cleveland, huh?
I did. I moved to Cleveland, Tennessee when I was in 8th grade.
From where?
From all over. I lived in 8 states.
Oh.
Yes.
Military? Or?
No, everyone asked me that. My dad, it was in farm equipment sales.
Yeah.
So he traveled a lot. So we were in a lot of different places: Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado.
Wow. Where were you born?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, eh?
I was, but I only lived there for 2 years, so I definitely, as you can tell, I do not have that accent. It comes more from the South. So
what brought you to Cleveland? Your dad's in equipment sales, and because you were in Cleveland from then on after that?
Yeah, so they started their own, my dad and grandfather started their own company and then just kind of settled in Cleveland they could travel from there.
Oh, what a good place to be. How'd you like growing up in Cleveland?
I didn't really know anything different. I mean, it was better. I feel like every move was a step up, if you will. So I enjoyed it.
So growing up in Cleveland, I know you went to MTSU. What'd you do there?
I did. I studied communications, art and anthropology, random mix of things.
Let me go back to Cleveland a second. You're growing up there. You have high school jobs and typical teenage stuff?
I did. I worked at Central Park. Worked at a little pizza place in the mall. And then I was a river guide at Ocoee Outdoors on the Ocoee River.
How did you get into that?
A lot of our friends did it. So I worked up there for probably 3 years. We started, before we could become river guides, I sold photos for the companies, for the rafting companies. And my now boyfriend, and a lot of friends worked in the Grumpy's little...
Oh, Grumpy's.
Yes. Do you remember Grumpy's?
Yeah, I had been to Grumpy's.
Yeah, it was just a little store that you could get lunch and dinner and snacks. And so we worked in there and we sold photographs and then we became river guides. So we were I think a lot of people from Cleveland went that route. It was a great summer job. It was a lot of work. We were there for probably 70 or 80 hours a week, but it was fun because we were all together.
Yeah, it's almost like camp or something.
It is, for sure.
I was curious about that because my youngest daughter is in the outdoor industry, and when she went to school at Swanee, she comes home her freshman year and she's applied for 2 jobs. And one is spelunker guiding people in caves for Georgia Girl Guides.
Oh, wow.
And the other was a river guide. And I said, Peyton, you haven't ever done either one of those things. How are you going to do it? They'll teach me.
Yeah. You have to go through training. You have to go through training. I can't remember how long it was, probably a month. And then you guide with a senior guide and they say pass or fail. I mean, you don't always get to be a guide, but if you do it the right way and you pass, then you're on your own.
So when you say river guide, you're on the raft and you're the one directing. How old were you?
17, 18, yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility. Yeah. Do you think back on that and go, oh my God?
It was, had one really scary experience where I had a boat full of people, one of which I think was like 65 or 70-year-old gentleman that was slightly heavy.
I like that. I've been called slightly heavy.
Well, slightly heavy compared to my, stature, I guess. But he fell in the water, and there are a lot of places you can get out and swim and things like that. And we knew where those places were, and it was very safe. Where he had a lot of people that had ropes, and I mean, there was a system to it. But he fell out, and there were ways to get people back in the boat, and I got him back in, and I got a huge $50 tip that day.
I bet.
But yeah, it was kind of scary when you think about it. But
in pulling him in the boat, did you find a strength you didn't know you had?
Yeah, you just kind of go into.
You just do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Safety mode. I don't know, but yeah.
Did you just do that one summer?
I was up there for 3 summers. So I sold photographs. I worked at Grumpy's the next summer, and then River Guide for 1 or 2 summers. I think probably 2.
So what did that teach you that you've taken into your career today? Are there things you look back on and say, that was an experience that if I didn't have that?
Gosh, I've never thought about that being part of what I do today, but maybe just the fun of it. I think it was a ton of work, but being together with a group of people, like having a community makes the hard easier and makes it enjoyable. So maybe that's the thing I took with me.
That's something that I think a lot of businesses not forget about, but don't pay enough attention to the culture and the camaraderie, because you spend as much time with your work family as you do your regular family.
Yeah.
Sometimes more.
There have definitely been years where I don't feel like I'm great at the celebration and the joy. You write a grant, you get a grant, you move on. You don't have time to sit and celebrate, and we've got work to do. But the last couple of years, we've really tried as a team. We have a leadership team that's really been focused on this because it's so important to have a great culture. And you're right, we spend so much time with people at work, and we want it to be we want to be effective and we want to be impactful, but we also want to have joy in our day as well. So we've really been trying to celebrate more.
Yeah, that's good. So you do this, and it's finally time to go to college. You go to MTSU, and tell me, anthropology was your major?
Communications was my major. I wanted to be an anthropologist, but I did not want to be a teacher. So that just seemed complicated. Yeah. So I minored in anthropology and art, and majored in communications. And I was a nanny in school, all through school.
Really?
Found a great family. They became my family and kind of took me in, and it was a great job through college.
Was that something you did on your own or with an organization? Because you hear of all pairs.
Yeah, no, this was just a babysitter. I think she advertised at school at MTSU, just with the student groups. And so I found it through that. We had a placement center where you go in and look for jobs on the board before the internet came along.
Pull off the phone number where it's cut in the right position.
Yeah. So it was posted at school, and I connected with them, and that was just a great way to work and provide. I had to purchase my books and gas and pay for rent when I did finally move out of the dorms, and so that was a way for me to be able to do that while also going to school.
Did you do it all 4 years for them?
I think 3. I worked at Days Inn. I worked at a hotel before that.
You worked hard.
Yeah.
I mean, you're working at a hotel and working for this family.
Well, before the family, then I found the family that was way better job than the hotel. But
you still in touch with them?
Yes.
How old are the kids today that you?
This will age me.
Well, I didn't mean it like that.
They're oh gosh.
I got a reason for asking it.
Over 20, 25 maybe, 24, 25.
My other daughter, and I know this isn't about me, babysat for the same family basically for 4 or 5 years. And she just got married in April. And the 2 young men now that she babysat for were at the wedding. And it was such a cool thing to see these 20-year-old young, 20, 25, something like that, the full circle of it. That's a great deal.
Yeah, it's a good connection for sure.
Yeah. So MTSU, you're working hard, you're getting a communications degree, you'd rather be an anthropologist, you don't want to teach, you're doing a little bit of art.
I loved communications. I loved the classes. It was super interesting. I loved the writing piece and the design piece. And once I found that and started taking the classes in that major, I loved it.
And MTSU's got a great program.
They do. And it was kind of it was the new communications building when I went. So everything was new and fresh. And
so you get out, what do you do?
my first job was at Channel 9.
Did you have the job before you came back, or you came back and...
I did actually. I remember being in Murfreesboro and kind of coming back and forth and doing interviews and sending resumes.
That's fun.
So yeah, super exciting. And I remember having to like find a suit, because again, this was a long time ago. So we had to, really dress up. And so I had to have,
really used to deck out for interviews.
I had to have a full on suit, and I was, 22 or 24, I don't remember. But so I worked at Channel 9 as my first job out of school doing the on-screen graphics. So behind the news person, all of the graphics that come.
So what we would call the over-the-shoulder graphic, whatever the story was. So you would create those yourself?
Yes.
And that was long before Canva.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Photoshop, Illustrator, the real programs before, yeah.
Yeah. How long?
But I use Canva now.
Do you? Mm-hmm. It's a good program. Mm-hmm. How long did you do that?
I was only there for 6 or 7 months. I got recruited to a magazine. So Creative Resources was a company here, and they had a magazine called Forte Magazine. Mm-hmm. So I was recruited to be their lead designer. And that's really what my major was. It was like newspaper magazine design. So I went and did that.
So instead of just doing a specific graphic, you were handling the whole look of the magazine.
Yes, and just the layout and the style of magazine.
That's pretty exciting for a 20-something-year-old. That's a lot of responsibility.
It was so much fun. There were everybody that worked there were. We were all in our 20s. It was, except for the few managers that were there, the owners, but everybody else was in their 20s. It was great. We had a softball team. We went out together. It was really fun.
Kind of back to that culture thing that you had on the river.
It was fun.
Well, that was exciting. And how long did you do that?
Oh, gosh, it was like 6 months. So
what's with you in 6 months?
I know. Well, they went out of business. Yeah. So then I went to a website design company, which was really small and a totally different culture. And they went out of business 6 months later. So I was kind of like, okay, this design gig is not working.
Yeah. And how old are you at this point?
25, 26 maybe.
So you're 25, 26, you've gone to school, gotten your major, and done things in it, and things aren't working out, not by your fault.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like it wasn't working. Yeah. So I had been taking pictures for the community kitchen as just a volunteer opportunity. I didn't know really about nonprofit or anything. We didn't have that when I went to school. But I've been taking pictures for the community kitchen, the families, and really liked that. Mm-hmm. So I literally took out the phone book back in the day and sent resumes to every nonprofit in Chattanooga. So I was like, I just want to do something different, and maybe nonprofit is the way to go. So I got called back from the Homeless Coalition, went and met with them and got the job. Worked at the Homeless Coalition, not doing design, doing completely, it was a database, training people on how to use the database. I was able to use my graphic skills to create posters and things like that for the Grateful Gobbler event that's still happening here in Chattanooga today.
It's a great event.
Yeah.
So you're at the Homeless Coalition. How long's that going?
I worked there for about 3 years.
And where's that lead you?
That leads me here. My boss at the time let me go to Costa Rica for a month. And that's kind of where it all shifted.
Well, and that's what I want to get to. Because you spent a year in Mexico. And so was Costa Rica before Mexico?
Costa Rica was before Mexico. He let me go to Costa Rica for a month. He thought it would be smart to learn Spanish and bring that back to the coalition. But also he was just a really great person and thought like this is something that he knew that I wanted to do and needed to do. So honestly, I went to Costa Rica for a month and was completely hooked.
Did you know any Spanish before you went?
I said I did, but I didn't. Like when you go to the test, I was like, oh yeah, like I've taken Spanish.
Yeah.
And they give you a test and it's like I didn't know anything, right? So put me in the super beginner classes. But it was crazy how much Spanish you learn in a month of being in complete Spanish immersion. So I was with a family, living with a family that spoke only Spanish.
So wait, what's that like? You show up and you really don't know any of the language. And I know as a tourist, how to get by. You could always find a bathroom and a beer.
Right.
But you're going to live with this family and all of a sudden they're talking away and you're like, okay,
yeah,
what's going on?
It's hard. And I honestly, looking back, I don't even know why I did. I think I just wanted to do something different. And I always had this kind of passion or want to go somewhere. I just didn't know how to do it or why. We didn't have, we were talking about this earlier, we didn't have study abroad programs when we were in school, but I felt like I wanted to do something. I was like, maybe I'll nanny somewhere, maybe I'll, so this was just a really great opportunity that I found a school, and through the school, they connect you with the immersion program. So I was able to go to school during the week, live with a family that we connected with people that were doing the same things, and we traveled on the weekends. And yeah, looking back, it was like, I was so fun, right? I was like,
well, and I want to ask this question as a parent. What are your parents saying to you at this point? Oh, wait a second here.
They didn't want me to go. So I remember talking to my dad about like right after, maybe even before college or during college, of doing, being a nanny in London or somewhere. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't really keen on them.
Yeah.
So I kind of just let it go. And then when I brought this up, they didn't really want me to go, but it was okay. Now, when I wanted to go to Mexico for a year, that was really challenging, but I didn't really tell them until I was really sold with it myself. I didn't go to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? Because
you had all your plans.
Yeah, I knew they wouldn't think it was a good idea. So I had it all planned out and structured out before I went to them.
So you go to them with it all planned out and structured. You kind of know how the reaction is going to be if you just said, hey, I'm thinking about this. How did that conversation go? Did they sit back and go, well, I mean, you're an adult. You got it all planned out. You've thought of all these things.
Yeah, I think at that point it was like, she's going to do what she's going to do kind of thing. They were scared.
Yeah.
But I think they were supportive.
Yeah, that's important. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother.
Is he as adventurous as you?
He's never done that kind of thing, I don't guess, but he does like to travel. And
yeah. Does that travel bug for the two of you come from all the moving you did up until the 8th grade?
I hated that part. I hated when I was in sixth grade moving. It's like, yeah, you're the new kid. You're leaving friends. It felt so traumatic and so hard at the time. But now looking back, I do think it was helpful, right? Yeah. In learning how to do that kind of thing and
how to be the new person. Well, you're a new person in Costa Rica,
Yeah.
Yeah. And, maybe even contributes a little bit to the desire to build a culture and have a work family too.
Yeah, maybe so.
Have that connection there. Yeah. So you talk about Mexico. You get to well, let me go back. You're in Costa Rica for a month. You do the immersion. You come back to the Homeless Coalition.
I do. Come back to the Homeless Coalition for another 9 months or a year, and then just say like, hey, I want to do this other thing.
And this is to go to Mexico for a year.
So I sold my car, sold all my, I didn't really have anything. I was young, but sold my car, moved out of my apartment.
How did you come to that decision? You're at the Homeless Coalition and you go, you know what I want to do next? I want to go to Mexico for a year and sell all my,
was it weird? I can't even remember. I loved the Costa Rica experience so much. Mm-hmm. And I really did fall in love with the people, the culture, the language. So when I came back, I had a bug, and I felt like I was consistently looking for something and looking for a place. I'll also say that I was with my high school boyfriend. met my husband in 8th grade. I walked into the classroom as a new student, and he was like, "Hey, sit here." So I've known him since 8th grade. We were together on and off through high school, through college. But I think that was another piece of it. Like, do I just get married because we've been together and we're supposed to, or do we really do this because it's meant to be? And I think that played a part in like, hey, I need to do something for myself to know this is for real.
So he didn't go with you.
No.
So not only are you going, your parents are going, I'm going to go to Mexico for you. You're going to a longtime boyfriend says, this is going to be really important for our relationship. For me to go for a year and leave you here in Cleveland, Tennessee.
I mean, that's the other thing. Like, I don't remember, again, all the conversations, but I know that, at our wedding, I remember saying, had a whole thing, nicely done, but basically like he supported that decision. And I think that was probably the best thing that he could have done for me at that time. And for me to still, for us to still be here. This is our, we'll be married 20 years in October.
Oh, congratulations.
So thank you. And so I think I needed that. And I feel like if I had not had that, I probably would have had one of those 10 years in kind of thing of, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Well,
you don't want to wake up when you're 30 or 40 or whatever age and say, I can't believe I never did this, or I've been doing X for all this time.
Yeah.
That's pretty smart on your part. Talk a little bit about Mexico. Where did you go? What did you do? You're there a year. You got to find a way to make a living, right?
Yeah. So I was in Guadalajara.
The whole time?
Yes. I traveled a lot to other different places, but I stayed in Guadalajara. So at first I lived with this older woman and her granddaughter or niece for a couple of months. But as soon as I got there, I had my resume. I started looking for a job. So I got a job at a school teaching English. So I was an English teacher for elementary kids, and then middle school, high school, there was like a I don't even know what the class was, but like an elective here, you would call it an elective, but in the afternoons I would work with the middle school and high school, which was probably one of the biggest challenges ever. The elementary kids were very sweet. I got kisses every day and cute little, notes and all of that. And then middle school was just not the same.
They change.
And it was very challenging. But I did that for a semester. And then I went on to do a month or 6 months TEFL certification program, which is teaching English as a foreign language. And it's full time. So you can't really teach while you're doing that. So I did that and then worked in a coffee shop the rest of the time that I was there.
What do we as Americans get wrong about everyday life in Mexico?
I don't know what people think, honestly, but I know that people work really hard and like everybody's working, but I feel like people take advantage, and this was the same in Costa Rica and Latin American countries. They take advantage of or they stop and take time to enjoy the people around them. But I don't know that people realize how hard people work. And I think that's something that I've seen in all the places I've traveled, Honduras, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Mexico. The people just work really, really hard, but they appreciate relationships and they appreciate the joy, even if it's in, 9:00 at night when they're eating dinner with their families, because that's the only time they see each other.
And that translates to the migrants who come across how hard they work.
For sure.
So you're in Mexico for a year. You do the English as a foreign language, and that's the back half of your year there.
That
teaching?
Is. So then I explored a master's program doing English. I was starting that process and then just kind of kept hitting some roadblocks and felt like probably should come home for that guy that was waiting on me. Honestly, I don't know if he wasn't here, I probably wouldn't have come home, at least so soon, because I loved it. I loved, again, the culture, the people, the language. It was such a wonderful experience. And didn't want to leave, but I wanted to come back for him.
How did that change you?
I don't know. I feel like it changed me so much, and it's hard to explain. I think it gave me the empathy for, looking back, I didn't know where I would be then, today, but looking back, I feel like it gives me the empathy to, for the people that are walking through the doors at La Paz. It's different. I was privileged and had the opportunity to go somewhere for a period of time to experience life and enjoy life. It's not the same as having to come to a different country to work for their families because they had to, right? So it's totally a different experience, but I do feel the empathy of having to learn another language, living in a place that you're not sure the systems and the culture, and understanding not just the language, but the nuances of all of that.
Mm-hmm. You decide to come back. Where do you go? I know you get married, I'm assuming, because you've been married 20 years now.
Yes. I come back, and I'm in severe culture shock. Shock. Just really in a funk. I didn't, again, I wanted to be here for my husband, for my family, for friends.
Yeah.
My husband has 2 sisters that are my dear friends, and they were, since we've known each other for so long, they have been part of that. So we had a large friend group, and I enjoyed that, but it was different. I missed a lot, and my experiences were of things that I did in Mexico, and a lot of people just don't want to hear that all the time, unless you find someone that has done the same thing, and then it's like you can talk through that. But I realized that people didn't want to hear all of that all the time.
Yeah.
And then
that was a big part of your life for a year. That was your life for a year.
Life. Yeah. So, after the initial, how'd it go kind of thing, I didn't want to keep hearing it. And I wasn't sure where to go, what to do. I was like, well, I guess I'll teach English because I don't know what else I would do. What do you do with Spanish and with all of these things? So I was kind of floundering for a while. I did some volunteer work, teaching English, really just trying to find some footing. And several months later, I was hired again, several months and connections, and it just wasn't an easy, here we go kind of thing.
You didn't walk off the plane and so.
Yeah, it was probably 6 to 8 months later. I did go back to the Homeless Coalition, I think, for a little bit to just, they helped me, I helped them kind of thing. But I found through connections was hired at First Tennessee to create their Hispanic banking program, which was such a blessing because it allowed me to use the language that I had gained. It allowed me to use the culture. It allowed me to connect with others in the community that were speaking Spanish and working with the community. And it also gave me the opportunity to find La Paz. So all at the same time, I got married, I found First Tennessee, started the Hispanic banking program, and was asked to be on the board of La Paz as they were officially becoming a 501c3 nonprofit. So
you get back, and there's a few months of getting your sea legs. When the First Tennessee opportunity came your way, were they kind of at the forefront of developing? Oh,
for sure. It was not a thing. So Keith Sanford, still thank him for that.
We just had Keith on the podcast. Yeah.
With his retirement.
Yeah.
So he had such a vision for that and for working with the community. He also had a love for the community. He was great friends with Lou Garcia, which he started Metropolitan Ministries, Met Men, as well as La Paz. And so that's just all of the connections. I knew Lou from the Homeless Coalition. And so they just really had, I think they talked for a long time before I even came into the picture, of how they wanted to help the Latino community. And this was just a way that Keith, through the bank, First Tennessee, they could do something. Did they find out about you and your travels, or did someone see the job and say, hey, this might be a good fit for you? No, they created the job. I don't think it was there. Oh, yeah. So, but they knew you or I was connected with them. Their marketing person I met their marketing person. I think it was kind of, something that Keith wanted to do, something that Lou was pushing. So, it was just kind of
so you helped bring
a big
it together.
storm of things.
All the different puzzle pieces. And I guess what I'm getting at in there is the importance of building relationships and connections.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't believe, and I might be wrong about this, but I really don't believe that there was a job before that. I think it was, some things that they wanted to do. How do we do it? And then they came up with this. And I was hired to be the first and only, I think.
How long did you do that?
3 years.
And that led to you getting on the La Paz board, is that correct?
Yes. So I was asked to be on the La Paz board by Lou Garcia. He was on the board, founding board. And because I was at the bank, they brought me in as a treasurer, which I find funny. I've never been a banker, never been a super great treasurer, not a money person. But I was brought in at that time for that reason. And yeah, I never left.
I understand that the treasurer aspect, but the good thing about that puts you on the executive committee,
right,
where the real decisions are made.
And it was such a small, it was a small board. We had, a halftime person working there. It was being formed at the same, as the time I came in. So it was really exciting for me because I was, the board members were the work. We did the things. Yeah. So I designed their brochures, and that's when the design came in, and my background in communications came in. I did their website and the first grants and all of that was done by
How did La
board.
Paz start?
So before I was in the picture, there was a group of faith leaders that were working under the umbrella of the Salvation Army with a program called Esperanza El Barrio. And it was on Main Street.
And translate Esperanza El Barrio.
It's the hope of the neighborhood. So they were working under the Salvation Army. Salvation Army used to have a location on Main Street. And they had a computer lab and things like that. This was before Main Street was the Main Street we know today. So they were working with the community. They had a couple of people that were just building relationships with the community and really just connecting with them. But this group of people realized that they weren't able to fundraise. They weren't able to do some of the things that they wanted to do because they were under the Salvation Army. There were restrictions, if you will. So they decided they really wanted to form something separate. So that's when they branched off and formed La Paz de Dios. And I was brought in fairly early on when started. So I remember filing the 501c3 paperwork and being, as the treasurer, I had to go sign some of those things. So that's why I say I was there from the beginning of the La Paz organization. But there was so much work being done, with that same group before I was there.
But you're there as a board member for how long?
Well, I joined the board in 2004 and then was hired in 2008 as the first executive director. So 4 years.
So can you talk about that process a little bit? You're on the board, things are going, and in 2008 you become the director. What took place?
Yeah. So again, the board was, we were the people that did the majority of the work. We had a part-time person. We wrote the grants. We did all of the events. We had an event at the Chattanooga market, Feria Hispana. We did all of that. So I wanted to get there. I wanted to be there full time. That was something, once I got in that, I realized that is really what I wanted to do.
And are you at the bank this whole time?
I'm still at the bank. I love the bank. But I like the relationship piece of it and the working with the community piece of it. So it was a great mix to have both of those. But a few years into the banking job, no one else was kind of catching up to the times, if you will. And it was just kind of like, okay, this is going to take longer than we think. So that project faded into something else. And my job was shifting into a different position that I wasn't necessarily wanting to do. So
more traditional. Yeah.
It's really trying to get to La Paz. So we were writing grants. we had a board member that was lived in Dalton, lived in Chattanooga, but worked in Dalton at one of the carpet factories, and knew about a program in Dalton that was called Promotores de Salud, Promoters of Health. And they had this program through the hospital. And we went and explored that program, wrote a grant for that program. So a state grant, our first really big grant, and we got it. So it was a 3-year grant for, I think, $200,000, really big.
Total or per year?
Total.
Yeah.
And with that grant, we were able to hire a director 5 hours a week. I was getting paid 5 hours a week.
Wow.
But because we were able to hire a director 5 hours a week, we were also able to use that funding to hire someone to help us with communications and, getting the word out, doing a newsletter, that kind of thing.
So you had some tools to build it now.
We had a little bit more foundation. And then the halftime person went to full time. So we were able to serve the community, in a bigger way. So then we had kind of that foundation. So it took us, it took us 4 years to really get it up and running, where we could have that foundation. And once we had that, then we were able to build and grow through grant funding, through relationships with the community. And yeah, that's kind of the start. And
you started as director in 2008, right? Yes. When the Great Recession's hitting.
Yeah, I guess so.
So did that have an effect on what you were trying to build?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Probably because the organization was not so new, but you finally get the grant and you get some focus and be able to build things. You're kind of starting from scratch anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, we're starting from scratch. I mean, my husband was in the construction world and the home builder world, so I felt it from that perspective, but not really from the La Paz perspective. We were just starting. So nobody was making any money. We all had second jobs, third jobs. I mean, we were just, focused on building the organization.
Well, then talk about building the organization, because from where you had it in 2008 to where you are today, it's a big difference in how you built it, but also how the size of the Hispanic population has changed in Chattanooga and why it's such an important organization for it.
Yeah, so we have traditionally really remained flexible to meet the needs of the community. So before La Paz started, the year before La Paz started, there were less than 1,000 Hispanic students in the school system. And today there are over 10,000, or almost 10,000, sorry. So it's like a 22% of the total school population. So that just gives you a snapshot of the tremendous growth.
Hamilton County Schools?
Hamilton County Schools, yes.
10,000 Hispanic students?
It's like 9,800 students at the end of the year.
And even though it's all Hispanic, they're not all speaking the same dialect or even language. Is that right?
Right. We have a large Guatemalan community here, and probably 20%-ish speak a Mayan language as their first language. There are over 33 Mayan languages spoken in Guatemala. There are other languages spoken in Mexico, Peru, and other places. So it's a big challenge when you're working with a community that not only speaks Spanish, like a different language, but also bringing in some of these Mayan language, which are completely different than Spanish. If you know Spanish, it does not mean that you know any of these languages. They're completely different.
I couldn't imagine. That's got to be a challenge for the teachers. How does La Paz serve that community and challenges like that?
Yeah, so we were recognized in 2010, 2012. We got a federal grant to work with the indigenous Guatemalan community, and we did it really grassroots. I mean, we were bringing people together for sewing class, for Zumba class, yoga class, making jewelry. We realized that bringing women together, women that have been looking for people like them. They were kind of stuck at home while their husbands were going to work in a new place, in a new culture with new language. And we brought these women together slowly. It was a long process, but building that trust with the community and bringing them in to provide that opportunity and that experience. For a couple of years, they just made jewelry, right? But we were like, there's something else. And then they started to talk about all of the things, their experiences, whether it be domestic violence or, even the good things. They started to build that community amongst themselves, and we simply provided that opportunity for them. And that's really why we were recognized, but also the base of our work at La Paz. We've continued to really focus on what the community tells us they need. And I feel like we've done a great job of doing that really since the beginning of La Paz.
You said something that I think is important, is trust. And I would imagine, particularly early on, getting the trust of not just the community, but individuals is very difficult. Has that not necessarily become easier, but the fact that you've been around 20 years and you've got a track record and there's people that say, no, this is what you need to do and where you need to go?
Yeah, I think the trust has been built over the years. So I definitely think, I think the Latino community loved us when we were in the St. Andrews Center and when we were in a little house on Bailey Avenue. I think the general community trusts us more as an organization, or we're kind of more legit, if you will, now that we're in a Latino center. They can see us as kind of an official organization. But I think the Latino community, we've built that trust and we continue to build that trust. And yes, over the years, they tell their friends, they tell their family, and the word of mouth is the main way people come to La Paz. And we hope that continues.
What do Chattanoogans need to know about our Hispanic community that we either take for granted or have the wrong impression?
I just wish people could see the beauty. And this is everybody, right? I think we have, especially in the last several years, we've started to see people differently. And I feel like if people could see the beauty with the within diversity. We have a very diverse Latino community here. We have people that are from rural Guatemala that speak a Mayan language that may or may not have even gone on to middle school and high school. We have professionals from Puerto Rico, from Colombia, from all over the world, and we get to experience every day the diversity within, but also, again, going back to that beauty of culture, and they are sharing it with us. And I think as a Chattanoogan, I'm just grateful that I get to see that and witness that and be part of that.
I tend to oversimplify things, and I insist that everyone's got the same goals. You want what's best for your family. You want a good, safe environment for your kids. You want them to do better than you. And anyone that's migrating to this country from their country because they think there's a better life, you got to admire that. I mean, they're, lack of a better term, cashing everything in, and they're coming here and working hard. And I think that's what's not missing, but we tend to demonize today.
For sure. I mean, I've always said that I pray, I would hope or pray that I would have enough courage to do what some of these people have done and are doing. And that's why I always say immigration is not a political issue. It's a human one. I did it's not a TED Talk, but it was similar on immigration several years ago. And it was really just about making it like human and how would you feel? And we're starting to see some of these, the war in Ukraine and all of these different places. This could happen here. Things could happen in the U.S. and we could be displaced. We could, find ourselves in a situation where we're not able to provide for our families or we're in danger. There are, people trying to harm us, whether it's because of our political or our faith or, whatever our beliefs. It can happen to us, and we need to just think about that and put ourselves in the shoes of someone else, because I feel like the majority of people, probably 99% of the people that come here, would prefer to stay in their own home country with their families, with their friends. but sometimes feel like there is no option because they need to find a better life for their families. So yeah, I think just thinking in that simplistic way of, I hope that I would do the same thing.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, is that if someone has made that decision, can you imagine all the factors that brought them to that? They don't. Who says, you know what I want to do? I want to walk 1,000 miles to a better life. No, I wish my better life was right here and we could stay here and do this.
Right.
Go to a country where I don't know the language, or go to a country where I'm not respected or I'm misunderstood. So I agree with you 100% that empathy is the big word there.
Yeah.
For me.
And there's a lot of people that are, a lot of families that are split up because of this, right? Like there are dads coming here to work for their families and they can't bring the whole family. And so I don't believe that the majority of people would like to do that. They would rather be with their families and provide for their families in their home countries.
Yeah. I got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
What's next for La Paz and Stacy Johnson?
Wow. So we're 20 years old this year. I feel like, we've taken off the braces. We're not drinking age yet, but we're like getting there. I do feel like this year, everything has exploded in a good way. We have 15 people at La Paz. We are doing things that we have been dreaming about for years. I mean, I think the building was such a huge catalyst for growth for our organization, and we knew that, but it took us so long to get a new space. But once we got that space in 2021, it just started to, the momentum started. And again, this year we have exploded. So you come to La Paz any night of the week and we have something going on. It's full. Our space is full always. And that is what we dreamed about. We dreamed that we would have a space that we created for the community, and they would use it in ways in which that would benefit them. So we have business classes, we have English classes, we have computer classes, we have dance classes for kids. The building is full. We are making a huge impact in the community. We get 50,000 calls a year. So we are seeing all of these dreams come true. And I've told someone recently, they asked me the same thing, like, where do you see La Paz in 3 to 5 years? And I've said, you know what, we're 20 and we're kind of at the peak of Mount Everest, and we are pausing and we are looking out, and we are going back to one of the first things we said, we're trying to celebrate where we have been and how far we've come, and know that as we move forward, we're going to remain flexible to meet the needs of the community. So right now, the community is asking for business support. They're saying we want to start businesses. So that program that started, with pregnant moms early on is a program that is utilized for businesses today. So we have grown in that way, but I think we have continuously been flexible, have been, we listen to the community, and that is something that I feel like I hope that we will always do. And if we do, I think we will continue to grow with the community that we serve.
How does someone get in touch with you if they're interested in either volunteering, supporting?
LaPazChattanooga.org. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have all the things. You can find us all of those places, but probably the easiest is just our website, LaPazChattanooga.org.
All right, before I get to the last question, I want to remind listeners who makes all this possible, and that's a huge thank you to the Tennessee Valley Authority for sponsoring my Morning Cup. Follow TVA on social media to learn more about its multifaceted mission of service, and visit TVA.com/do-good-here to explore exciting TVA career opportunities. Last question for you.
Yes.
What would you tell the 25-year-old Stacy Johnson is important for a happy life?
I should have prepared something for this.
It's better when you don't.
I have thought a lot about this recently because I have a 14 and 16-year-old, and I feel like they're so hard on themselves, and they're so committed to their individual sport or school, or which I find I don't feel like I was that way. So I feel feel like, but I do feel like the being hard on yourself and really thinking that you have to have everything together. I guess I would say like, just follow the path. I never in a million years dreamed that I would be where I am right now. And I think looking back, it makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
Like looking back, you're like, oh, that's why I did that job, or, oh, that's why I went to Mexico, or, oh yeah, that's why. So I think, you're never going to know that until you have that look back moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say just follow your gut, follow your heart, and follow the path.
That's great advice. That passion. You obviously have a passion for what you're doing that you discovered, when you went to Costa Rica to a great degree.
For sure.
Well, it's great meeting you. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for
being
me.
part of my Morning Cup.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.